Welcome back. In this short video we're going to look at hyperlinks in Excel. And to start with, I've created some data. These are students, first name, last name. This is their username to log into the computer and an alternate username that they may use on other accounts. And you'll notice they're very similar. So they might use this to log into their Google or whatever. Okay, they've got two passwords, one associated with the first and the second associated with the second username, a school, and a year of graduation. You might notice that I've sorted by year of graduation, so it's 17s, 18s, 19s, and 20s. In actuality, what I sorted by was username 1, and we'll come back to why I did that in a moment. Okay, first of all, let's take a look at hyperlinks in Excel. Now, these are email addresses, which are a form of hyperlink, and if I were to hit enter, and you might notice when you're working in these cells that they may accidentally become hyperlinks where you might not want them to. If that's the case, you can right-click on it and simply say Remove Hyperlink. If that had happened to a series of them, let me set that up quick. You simply could select the group. Now, be careful because selecting in the cell is going to actually just trigger the hyperlink. So let me get out of there. So one way, depending on your version, is simply to click in the adjacent cell and then move into it, maybe using your arrow keys. And then I'm going to use my down arrow to select them all. In this version of Excel, what's nice is I can actually select it by being all the way over to the right. In some versions, even if you're over to the right, it's going to trigger the hyperlink. When I get them all selected, I can also right-click and remove the hyperlinks. Okay, if I actually wanted hyperlinks in my document, that would be fine. I simply type the address in there and hit enter, and that will cause it to become a link. If not, I could right-click on it and go to hyperlink and establish that hyperlink. So that would be a case where maybe I wanted to put some text in here that wasn't the actual link, but then I'll link it. So let's just do this. We'll put the word search in there. And then I can right-click and I can say hyperlink, and I can exist to an existing file or web page, a place within this document, which we'll revisit in a moment, creating a new document, or an email address. So email address would have been appropriate for the others. But an existing page, I'm just going to put an address in here of http://www.google.com. And this now becomes a link to open up Google. So if I was collecting websites, there you go, I'm at Google. If I was collecting websites and I wanted them to be active hyperlinks in Excel, I could do that pretty easily. I'm just going to delete that one. But what I want to look at for a moment is how to link within Excel. So when I look at my data, I happen to notice that the username for two of my students is exactly the same. Now, our usernames are based here on year of graduation, first initial, last name. And so Jake Smith and Joseph Smith happen to both be in the class of 2017, and therefore, by this formula, they would both be 17 J. Smith, and that's a problem. So I'm going to have to change one of them. Now, perhaps Joseph was the last one into the district, or perhaps he's just later in alphabetical order. Whatever I want to do, I will just change his name to include, in both cases, his full first name as an alternative. And you can come up with whatever scheme you want for something like this, but I just don't want repeats, and so I've changed that. Now, maybe I'll change Jake to Jake, or maybe since Joseph came in later, I'll leave Jake, whatever I want to do. But I want to make note of this because he doesn't follow the pattern. And so if this is a shared resource that a lot of people are using, they may know how it works, but they may also want to double check that this is accurate and that it's not a mistake. So I can do that in a variety of ways. I could put the hyperlink right here on Joseph Smith, or maybe I'll just add an extra notation there. Now if you look at my sheets along the bottom, you can see that I've already prepared hyperlinks 2, and in there I put, let me make that consistent, I've put the name Joseph Smith, and then I've also put a comment there, so that that's an explanation as to why he might be different or why he has a hyperlink in the document. And his name is in cell A2. The comment is in cell B2, so that's going to be important to know. So let me select that cell and add a hyperlink. You may come up here, but what you want to do is pick Place in Document, select the other sheet, and type in the cell you want to link to. So I'm going to go to A2. I'm going to link right to his name and say OK. Now when somebody clicks this, they're going to jump right over to Joseph Smith, and that's going to show you why his information is different than the other students. Just to practice that, let's do this. I'm just going to say return up here. Really not necessary, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to make that a hyperlink to a place in the document, hyperlink 1, and you can see it defaults to A1, which is the top of the document. I suppose if I wanted to be all fancy, I could default back to his reference next to, right next to his name. And that might be handy if I had a big long sheet, so I wouldn't have to go back down and search for it again. But if that was going to be the case, I would put the link next to each entry to do that. Probably more work than I want to do. So let's just try that. And it brings me back here. So this will jump me over to Joe. This will return, and this will start to make more sense as I have more notations or comments in this section. And that concludes this tutorial on using hyperlinks in Excel.